BeckTek CEO Scott Beck joins us this week to break down news from Gradient, ScalePad, and Liongard, as well as Service Manager Success Secrets, plus a special guest interview with Forrester Principal Analyst Jay McBain on the top 10 Uber-level trends affecting the channel. It's ChannelPro Weekly number 207, Hot Dogs from Left Field. Hello and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly, episode 207. My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and your host of this show for the folks out there who are like you. And when I say like you, you're the VARs, the IT integrators, the MSPs, the MSSPs, the IT consultants, the cybersecurity specialists. There's a lot of acronyms going on with a lot of those companies, but names with that. Basically, if you do technology solutions for other businesses, you are in the right place, and we welcome you. If you are the concession stand worker serving hot dogs at your local baseball stadium, be glad you're here to learn about this stuff, because they make a lot more money than those concession stand people. So stick around with us and you will enjoy it and have a great time. Joining me each and every week is the man of the hour, the guy who makes ChannelPro what it is, executive editor, Rich Freeman.
Greetings, Matt, and greetings, everybody.
Have you ever worked in a concession stand, Rich, serving hot dogs?
Yes, I have.
Really? When did you do that?
I was in high school, and I can't even remember how I got into that, but I was part of this little crew of people who ran the concession stand around high school football games. So yes, I have, and hot dog. I don't even think we did burgers. It was all about hot dogs. So I have sold hot dogs to people at sporting events.
And yet here you are now running one of the most successful channel publications that there's ever been. From hot dogs to that.
There's a direct line between these two things. I wouldn't be where I was today if I hadn't learned those valuable lessons from selling hot dogs.
So there's a greater discussion about hot dogs to be had about the what is the appropriate way to dress said hot dogs. However, there's someone on that I want to get involved in that conversation as well, and I am super excited that he is here with us today. He's the CEO and of the cybersecurity and IT services firm BeckTek, based in New Brunswick, Canada. He's also a two-time international best-selling author and award-winning speaker, co-star of the Amazon Prime documentary Cybercrime. Please welcome back Scott Beck. Welcome, Scott.
Hey, thanks a lot. And with all of that and $10, I can still get my Starbucks coffee. It's amazing.
That's awesome. So this is not your first dance here on the ChannelPro Weekly podcast. You've been on with us a few times, so it's always great to have you back. For those who don't know, may have missed one of those episodes, don't know who you are, why don't you tell us a little about you and a little bit about BeckTek?
Sure. Well, BeckTek has been around 17 years. It was one of those entrepreneurial brain farts. I was an ex-radio guy that got replaced by computers, and I went, computers might be a thing of the future. So I started learning that, and was working for somebody else in the late 90s, early 2000s. The networking exploded, and I went, they're billing me out at X number of dollars, and they're only paying me here. Hey, I could do this on my own and only have to work 6 hours a week, make the same amount of money. I can tell you 17 years in, I need to make a lot more than 6 hours a week now. But yeah, we've been growing steadily for 17 years, and it's an honor and a pleasure to be here to talk about all things IT.
Yeah, always great to have you on. I'm trying to think back, when was the last time you were on? Rich, when was he here last? You think I would have looked this up before we started?
Well, I'll tell you, my highlight moment of my ChannelPro career, if you will, was I was on stage with Rich in Dallas, Texas in 2020, would have been spring of 2020. And I flew home to Canada, and a week later, the world changed. And we did a podcast during that time frame of as we were all adapting to the new realities of the world. But yeah, when people say, what's your memory of ChannelPro, going, hey, I got to hang out with Rich. It was awesome. We were in Dallas and changed my world, and everyone else's.
Everyone else's too. Yeah. So I was just looking it up. So it was the middle of April of 2020. We did a show right after that. So that was still very, very early on in the pandemic. So how did that affect BeckTek?
The first 3 weeks were absolute crap, Matt. I'm going to be honest with you. And I can joke about it now, but we've always had business continuity plans for all of our clients. I had just never envisioned having to enact it for all of my clients at once. So we had to quickly transition. It was probably around 600 users. I'm sure others had bigger numbers, but yeah, in the span of 3 weeks, we transitioned about 600 users to work from home and to do it securely. So I was very proud of my team. A lot of late nights, nothing like working until 3 or 4 in the morning and then getting up at 7 and doing it all over again. But great clients, we got through it, and it's been great. We've been developing quite nicely along with this with new clients. I don't want to belittle an event, but yeah, I'm not going to complain. It's been good.
Awesome. And so you were the co-star of that Amazon Prime documentary, Cybercrime. How did you get involved in that, and what was that like?
Well, I'm involved with the peer group, and we had done a book that was the first best-selling book, and from that I got a couple of speaking opportunities. I got a chance to speak at NASDAQ at Times Square. Nothing like seeing your ugly mug 75 feet tall in Times Square. That was fun. And spinning out of that was an opportunity to participate in the Amazon Prime documentary. And as the only Canadian, I was like, heck yes, let's do that. And yeah, it was kind of fun to go through the red carpet and being in Hollywood, and it was fun times.
Now, Rich, we recently had on someone else that was in that documentary, right?
Charles Henson co-hosted with us just a few weeks ago.
Yeah, it was pretty recent. So it's kind of cool. We got you both on it in just a short period of time. So,
and you know the other neat thing, Matt?
Yeah.
Same airline.
Was that a requirement?
So how long did that take to make? Like, was it, did you have to be involved from the beginning to the end, or did you like fly out for
No, the film crew actually flew from LA into Moncton, New Brunswick. I think it was the first time some of them had felt this kind of weather. And we did 2 days filming, a day and a half of filming here of my pieces. And then they went back to LA and put it all together. And then we had the big debut. So my side of things was about a day and a half.
Very, very cool. It's got to be neat to be involved in something like that. It's a cool thing to point to and be like, look, I was in that. That's pretty neat. So now
I may have hung the movie poster on my wall.
As you should. You should do that, of course. So now up in New Brunswick, do you have concession stands with hot dogs up there? Is that a thing?
Well, as you were talking about that, I mean, yes, you go to the hockey. It's a hockey game, not a baseball game. We have baseball, but it's not. Anyways, yes, you can. But as Rich was saying, he was doing it in high school. I'm like, in high school, I was like captain of the student police, but I used to work at one of the low-end steakhouses. Started out as a dishwasher, worked my way up to a master broiler person. Like, ooh, what a title, right? That you can walk around with. But yeah, I understand the food industry. Just didn't do it at a sporting event.
And so Scott, I'll let you go first. What is the correct way to dress a hot dog?
Well, in my neck of the woods, ketchup, mustard, relish, fried onions, cheese, and bacon.
Interesting. I was expecting maple syrup in that list of ingredients. But that's just because I think that yeah. Let's move on. That sounds good though. So what kind of cheese do they put on it though?
I guess you guys would call it American cheese. We don't, but let's just call it American cheese, processed cheese. And then that kind of gets melted a little bit, I assume. Fried onions. Interesting. Okay, Rich. Fried onions.
Fried onions.
Raw. They got to be fried.
Like deep fried?
Or on a skillet or whatnot, as long as they've been warmed up so they're not raw.
Okay, so like sauteed or fried onions. Got it.
Yeah.
That actually does sound really, really good. All right, Rich, what is the correct way to dress a hot dog to you?
I would just go with mustard and relish, but it's got to be brown mustard.
Interesting. And is that like, now every city kind of has their own ways. Is that like the Seattle hot dog, or is that just the way?
Well, no. Interestingly, there is a Seattle hot dog style, sort of, and that is the hot dog with cream cheese on it, and you get this from carts. So I mean, and all this is basically is something to soak up the alcohol on a Saturday night. If you've been drinking heavily, you go to the cart, you get the hot dog with the cream cheese, but that is kind of the Seattle hot dog.
Very interesting. And fortunately, because I am a Chicago resident, and of course, Chicago's way of doing a hot dog is the correct way. Everyone else is wrong. So, and that's, of course, you drag it through the garden with tomatoes, onions, sport peppers, relish, mustard. You put ketchup anywhere near that thing, you get beat up on the streets. You can't do that at all. Sport peppers, tomatoes. I think I hit it all. And celery salt's very important. So that is unfortunately. Thanks for playing, but you guys are wrong. That is the way to do it. So.
Well, let's take that debate to the hockey rink and see what happens.
Well, and on that note, you got to be excited. Hockey season's in full swing. Who do you follow?
Oh, geez, I don't want to admit, but I'm a Boston Bruins fan, followed by Nashville Predators, and then anybody but Montreal. Sorry, Habs fans that are listening. I do apologize, but yeah, it's Boston, Nashville, anybody but Montreal.
Love it. I'm a Blackhawks fan by nature. I've actually been, most people know who followed the show for a long time know that I actually follow the AHL more than I do the NHL, because we have one of the AHL teams that's very, very close to the Blackhawks affiliate to the Ice Hogs. Go Ice Hogs. But it's been fun watching the Blackhawks organization basically destroy itself over the last couple months. So that's been interesting. A lot of hockey fun. Rich, you guys got a hockey team in Seattle now?
We do, and they lost 4-2 to the Blackhawks last night.
Yep. It's been nice to see them actually win a couple games lately. So have you had a chance to go out and see the Kraken in person yet, or is that a difficult ticket to get?
A very difficult and expensive ticket to get at this point, but I'm looking forward to doing that. Hopefully this season at some point. I'll go ahead and make that happen. It's like that arena is like a 15 to 20 minute walk from here. I don't even have to worry about parking. But I will have to go, shell out some serious money for a ticket.
Yeah. Scott, you get out to hockey games often, or is Boston a long drive to go to a Bruins game?
Boston is about a 9-hour drive south for me. So we have nothing close for NHL. But you mentioned AHL. We used to have the Chicago-Toronto affiliate team in the late 70s. They actually had an affiliate that played here in Moncton years ago. But we have what's called Quebec Major Junior, part of so it's like the kids 14 to 20 that are feeders into the AHL, into the NHL. So we got one of those teams here, and a lot of fun hockey.
Yeah, that sounds great. I bet that is a lot of fun, and probably not horribly expensive to go see either, which is probably nice.
No, and parking is very affordable as well, and you don't have to give away a week's salary to go.
Awesome stuff. So I got a couple of things I'm going to ask you at the end of the show, but I want to get moving on here because we've got some news to cover. We got some stories to have. I'm excited you're going to be here with us to go through these. So love to get your feedback and opinion on these. So Rich, why don't we go ahead and get into it? So we've got Gradient in the news this week. They've got something to help with billing reconciliation. Tell us about that.
Yeah, and I think for the majority of folks in the audience, billing reconciliation is a familiar headache. Gradient, maybe not so much. There are probably some people scratching their head and wondering what the heck is Gradient. So let me set that up for you briefly. Gradient is run. Their CEO is a gentleman named Colin Knox. That name might be familiar to you because he was the founder and CEO of Passportal, password management documentation company. SolarWinds bought Passportal, I believe in 2019. They rolled that into SolarWinds MSP, which is now Enable. So up until about a year ago, a little over a year ago, Colin was working for what is the company now known as Enable. September 2020, he left. October 2020, he founded his new business, which is called Gradient MSP. And we've been kind of watching and waiting to see what that company is going to do. And this is still very much evolving. They have a big picture and an ambitious roadmap that they're working towards. In June, they introduced their very first product. It is was a data hygiene tool that would go into your PSA and kind of clean up the records there so that missing data or bad data, out-of-date data wouldn't be getting in your way and messing up your reports. But what they released this week is really their first sort of serious product, if you will, and the first product that really kind of shows you where they're going. And it is a billing reconciliation tool. So they're calling it Billable. The issue that it's designed to address, which again will be familiar to people who are listening right now, is you've got to bill your clients once a month for all of these usage-based or consumption-based services that you're selling them, where it's licensed per seat, or it's a storage or a BDR solution and it's licensed by the volume of data, whatever it is. Those numbers are fluctuating month to month, and so every month you got to go into 10, 20, 30 different vendor portals and get the latest numbers in terms of how many users, how much data consumption, whatever. Then you go into the PSA system, you update the contracts there so that when you generate the invoices, the numbers are accurate. What this billable system from Gradient is designed to do, is basically consume all of that information automatically for you from these 10, 20, 30 different vendor portals, and then export it all automatically for you into the appropriate contracts in your PSA system. Now, today, as we're speaking, it's not quite that automated. What you have to do still is get a CSV file from the vendors, and there's a sort of drag and drop process you go through one time in order to get the data off of that import into the PSA system. That's kind of I'll call it a kludge. That's a short-term fix. There is an API that Gradient has that will allow the supplier, the vendors who are supplying billing data, and the PSA vendors who are consuming it to handle all this on an automated basis. And there are 30 companies as we speak who are writing towards that API. So as we get into early 2022, that process that I'm describing is going to get much more automated than it is right now. There is a single user sort of base level functionality version of a billable available today for the low price of nothing, if you want to try it out. A more full-featured version of the product, which will be, have all the functionality that we've been talking about, goes for $49 a month. That is a flat rate. That's not per user, $49 per month, period, for everything the product does. It comes with that $49 a month license comes with a single integration, though, to one of those supplying or consuming vendors. And there will be some kind of additional fee you pay for each additional integration that you utilize. They haven't decided what that's going to be yet. We'll find out, I'm sure, next year. They integrate, I believe, with 8 different PSAs right now. So probably whatever you're using. And this kind of points to, again, the bigger vision that they're driving to, because the role that they really want to play for MSPs out there is they want to be, and this was the term Colin used when I spoke with him about this, they want to be the integration fabric that ties together all of the different systems that you use, so that you don't have to go, you don't have to manually move information back and forth between any of your systems. You don't have to manually update contracts in the PSA, manually visit lots of different systems. They want to be the hub, the connection point for all of the different systems that you use to both increase your productivity, but also give you the flexibility to use whatever tools you want, so that you don't have to worry about, does this RMM system, say, or PSA system that I really like, integrate closely with this documentation system from another vendor that I also really like. As long as you're tied into Gradient, Gradient will tie you into whatever else it is that you want to use. So from a short-term, medium-term perspective, there is a new billing reconciliation option for you out there. And regular listeners might remember we talked just a few months ago about a billing reconciliation tool from ConnectWise. Liongard, who we'll be talking about a little later on the show, they kind of perform. There are other options out there, but you've got another option you can investigate now. And then to the degree that you begin getting invested in what Gradient's doing, they're going to be rolling out more of these integration hub kind of solutions going forward.
Rich, I think they're stumbling on to a key part. I mean, a lot of conversations in the channel will be around cybersecurity or sales or marketing. But a lot of us are complaining around the background, the amount of time it takes to make sure that how much money is getting left on the table when the monthly billing cycle goes through, because you don't have those numbers updated. And where do you find the time to have someone dedicated to go do it? So I think they're probably onto something there.
Everybody wants to be the fabric. Everybody, what kind of fabric would you be, Scott, if you were going to be an integration fabric? Satin?
Sure, let's go with that.
Satin. He wants to be satin. No, it seems like it would be a very tedious and time-consuming process to update all of this stuff. So, but like Rich, you were saying that there are tools already that exist that do this, and it doesn't sound like this one's really competitive with those other tools yet, or are they?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question. So probably the closest kind of direct competitor is ConnectWise, the ConnectWise tool. But I think what Gradient is trying to build is maybe going to be a little bit more universal than that. Like the ConnectWise tool is really focused around reconciling billing on cloud solutions. So yeah, I mean, you know, and there are a lot of different products that are approaching this pain point, but they're all kind of doing it in slightly different ways. And so I guess it'll be a situation for the MSP of researching the different tools and trying to figure out which one is the best fit for your particular scenario.
Yeah, so it talks about integrations. That there's no integrations like really yet, but clearly in order to make this tool automated and useful, Scott, and you help me out here on this one, that you would need to have this kind of automated functionality and hooks to all of these different services and platforms. I'm trying to think like, okay, so they're going to charge more for those. I'm trying to understand their model here. And it's like, okay, it's free. You want a little bit more features, it's $50, which is like, that's nothing, right? $50 a month for unlimited people. But then there's this integration part. That's clearly where they're going to be looking to make money. How many systems, Scott, would you need to integrate with in order for this tool to like help you automate your billing stuff?
7 to 10, depending on how their APIs are working, what they're calling into. I mean, you know, we personally already have some integrations with some tool sets, but if there was one tool that could do everything, you know, 7 to 10 billing systems, pull those numbers from would kind of be probably the sweet spot for many MSPs, I would guess.
I guess it depends on how big your stack is and how many vendors you use. I guess this is where probably having fewer vendors in your stack is probably beneficial to having lots.
And depending what they're trying to pull from, right? So yes, it'll be interesting to see how that develops, because it is certainly a pain point. I hear that quite often. As I said, it's not the sexy conversation that's happening, but it is a conversation that ends up happening on the back end. Like, oh my goodness, we just spent hours having to review our cybersecurity tool X to find out how many licenses were in there. And oh my goodness, my guys are supposed to be offboarding those, and sometimes they miss them, or we add things and they don't get added, and we got to go spend hours trying to reconcile those things manually. So anything that could speed up. I mean, let's face it, productivity, whether it's your clients that you're servicing or your own business that's servicing them, it's the productivity that costs. It's the staffing cost. So if you can cut down on that, they could hit a home run.
Well, you said that there's also potentially lost revenue in the billing cycle too. So
how much exactly you're talking about when you onboard new systems and there's new licenses going out, and if that's not inputted properly into the system, it doesn't get billed. And then maybe, for sake of argument, let's say you only reconcile once a quarter. Well, you just missed 2-3 months of billing on those products that were added that you've already paid for, potentially. And that's the kind of stuff I hear others talking about all the time. And I'd love to say my guys never make a mistake. But the truth of the matter is, sometimes I go in and I go, hey, how come this system is showing 860 and that system's only showing 840 and I'm only billing for 800? Guys? And that's when you kind of look back and find how much you lost. And that just sucks. I love helping clients, but I don't want to be the Beck of Bank either, or the Bank of Beck.
The other scenario, which I'm guessing is maybe less frequent, but nobody wants to overcharge their clients, either. It's like that they've downsized, or they have less data in that cloud, and we're still charging. So it goes both ways.
Well, and that leads to a totally different awkward conversation, Rich, when you get that phone call from the client saying, hey, we removed those 10 licenses 2 months ago. Why am I getting overpaid? Or why have I been getting billed for this? Why aren't you watching out for this stuff? And then again, that can go back to a little bit of human error. So depending on people's onboarding and offboarding and how really well that flows, if there's humans involved, there's going to be mistakes. So if they can get that software dialed in to take that human mistake element out of it, yeah, I could see that being potentially very, very powerful.
Yeah, because you don't have to say you're sorry for that, because then you might have to like take them out for a hot dog or something. All right, so almost. We'll keep going.
Almost.
So I don't know. Is there anything else to add on this story, Rich, or should we move on?
Let's move on.
Let's move on. ScalePad is in the news this week. They've acquired Backup Radar. So this is another one of these mergers and consolidation stories. What do they got going on with this?
Well, they've actually got two things going on this week, one of which is that they bought Backup Radar, but let's come back to that in a moment and start with the other one, because that'll kind of help us set up who ScalePad is and what they do a little bit more easily. So there are probably some folks in the audience who are maybe not familiar yet with the ScalePad name, but do remember a company called Warranty Master. So Warranty Master basically did hardware asset management. So they helped you keep track of the warranties on all the hardware that you sell your customers and when those warranties expire. They provided information, and they're still doing all this, by the way, but they give you information on the age of those assets, when you might want to replace them. They provide services for offering extended warranty coverage on those devices. So they started out as Warranty Master doing hardware asset management. A little over a year ago, they added a software asset management module that would keep track of renewal dates on software subscriptions. And so at that point, they were doing hardware asset management and software asset management, or as they like to say at the time, ham and Sam. And the Warranty Master name no longer really applied. So they rebranded as ScalePad and really kind of thought of themselves as an asset management company as opposed to just a hardware asset management company. So one of the things that has been really valuable about their product to the users is all of this information that they're collecting from the end users about the hardware fleet and the software estate that they're using. And this information has been available to the MSP users in the past, and you've been able to kind of see what devices, on a red, yellow, green kind of basis, what are the ones that are newer versus older and so on. But what they did this week at ScalePad is introduce this whole new system that really pulls that information together and makes presenting it to the user in a way that the user will understand and maybe act on a lot easier. And they're calling it their digital maturity score. And so think of it as a credit score, basically. It works almost exactly the same way. There is a scale that runs from 300 to 850. And automatically behind the scenes, the ScalePad system is looking at a particular company's hardware and their software, and they're looking for devices that are out of warranty, software that isn't patched, maybe hardware that doesn't have antivirus software on it. That they're basically looking for all the things that you would know to look for in that environment to determine whether or not that end user is in a healthy kind of IT state. And then they're factoring that all into a digital maturity score that looks like a credit score. And what's powerful about that for you as a ChannelPro is you can now sit down with your customer, and instead of just kind of saying red, yellow, green, these devices are older, now you can kind of help them measure themselves against peers in the industry. So you've got a 600, which is in the fair zone, and that means you're kind of trailing most of the businesses out there your size. And in addition to the score itself, there are two other tools that come with it that make this whole model kind of work. So there's something that they call the insights feature. So you present the score to the customer, but the insights feature is going to tell you specifically what it is that's holding that score back. You know what it is, customer, it's these laptops that you're using here that are 6 years old. They're not under warranty. If we were to upgrade those laptops, your score would go too, and the tool will show you how you can bump up your score based on that change or updating the software, et cetera. And then there is a reporting feature that helps you kind of present that in an easy to read consume kind of way with the customer. So you can imagine yourself in a quarterly business review with a customer, kind of having this conversation with them, telling them you've got a low credit score, a low maturity score here. Here are the 8 things that are responsible for that. Let's set up a plan to fix it so that you're keeping up with the rest of the industry and doing the things you need to have a healthy, mature IT environment. So that is the digital maturity score. That applies to the hardware asset management, software asset management pieces of what ScalePad does. The other thing they did is buy this company called Backup Radar. And Backup Radar, basically, there are a ton of MSPs out there who, for one reason or another, are supporting clients with multiple BDR systems. So an individual client might only have one BDR system, but the MSP is responsible for 3, 4, 5 different BDR systems that their customers are using. And so Backup Radar provides a consolidated interface to track backup status information and historical information from those 3, 4, 5 different solutions in one place, instead of having, again, common theme here, having to visit each of those different systems and the individual vendor portals. From a ScalePad point of view, what this essentially means is now, in addition to hardware and software asset management, they're getting into data asset management, backup data in particular. And so it fits pretty naturally with what they've been doing before, this asset management theme. Backup Radar is going to continue doing business as an independent subsidiary of ScalePad under its current name, so they're not going to kind of roll all that together. But it's kind of a logical extension for ScalePad in terms of what they do. And I will point out that in addition to hardware asset management, software asset management, they're now doing data asset management. So they are now doing ham, sam, and dam.
Throw some green eggs in there, and you're and then you really got it set. So Scott, I think the thing to focus on here is probably this kind of credit score system that they're doing. Is this something that is as an MSP intriguing to you? Is this something that you would be like, I've needed this forever?
I actually happen to be a partner. It was interesting when you started to touch on this story, because I remember back when I first looked at Warranty Master and went, oh, I'm paying them money to do that? I'm just going to track that on an Excel spreadsheet. And then I matured and went, oh my God, it's taking me hours to do this every time I get ready for a TBR, and became a partner and used ScalePad. And when they brought these numbers forward, it was like, it's kind of intriguing. So it looks very snazzy as someone that's actually seen it and run some reports. And now starting to incorporate that into those, we call them technical business reviews, but I like it. Now this Backup Radar, it'll be interesting to see how that's going to fit into the family. But yeah, from a time, you're going to pick up the fact that I like trying to save time. So from saving the time of trying to track the assets, and then they brought in the software side, then the easy reporting for the computer life cycle. It's been amazing. So as they continue to develop it, it's fun to watch it go. And I can say that those reports with the scores on it is pretty intriguing. I've seen them in the green, and I've printed them off, and it's been in the red, and been able to go, and here's why. And it opens up the door for some bigger talks. And if someone is in the service industry and you're not talking to your clients, you are leaving money on the table. And it's tools like this that help you educate your client to get them to where they really need to be.
So they expect you to use this as to present to your end user. I'm gathering here. So
to your client,
yeah, to the client. Couldn't that also backfire, right? Like, hey, you know what? I pulled this report score, and you're in the red, and here's why. And as a client, wouldn't they come back to you and say, why the hell am I in the red? That's supposed to be your job to do all this stuff. Why is all this stuff not done?
So I can only comment from my own experience. As we onboard a new client and we get our tools in place, and then we run the score and have that meeting at day 60 or day 90, depending what the client does. And we say, hey, Mr. Client, here's where you're at. Now that we're in here and we've got our arms around your setup, this is where we're at. So we need to come up with a game plan to improve this. So maybe you don't have budget to give me to replace 15 systems right now, but really we need to be looking at replacing 5 every year. And in 3 years, we'll be fully under warranty. Everything will be rotating. and you'll be covered. But we need to get you from here to there. So Matt, you're right. If I just brought on the product and of running my first TBR and they're in the red, I may not point out that they're in the red. I may point out, hey, we've got some systems we need to get updated because they're falling out old. But I guess it's where are you at in the relationship with the client as to which way I would go with it.
So, yeah, so this may not be something you're putting in front of customers that you've had for 5 years, right? This is something newer customers, or unless it's a good thing, like if their score is in the very high numbers, be like, look, we do our job right. I guess it could be good for that.
I'll tell you, when we first brought them on, meaning the product, and I started incorporating in my TBRs, and there was like, oh, there's a whole bunch of systems. All you can do is be honest about it and go, hey, Mr. Prospect, I've got a new tool, and man, we didn't realize that some of these systems were as old as they were. They've been running okay, but it's the diminishing return. As they get older, they're getting slower. The staff were, complaining about, we just didn't know, but now we do because we got this tool. So I guess it's all in how you frame it. But yeah, if you just walked in and said, hey, Mr. Client, you suck, and man, we didn't catch that earlier, that'd probably be a bad thing.
Yeah. Why is the score so low? Well, it's this computer over here running Windows 3.11 for work groups. That's your problem, right? So go ahead, Rich.
Well, yeah, I mean, so I was going to say, if you run the tool and the insights feature tells you that the reason the score is low is because they've got all this unpatched software, that's on you, and you're probably not going to flag that for the customer. But if you've been doing these technical business reviews 4 times a year with the customer, and you keep telling them, those servers of yours are getting older and older, and we know what happens to old hardware, and they keep kind of saying, let's talk about it next time. Let's talk, this is not the right time. Let's talk about it. I think the theory at ScalePad is if you can show them this score, that this somehow makes it more tangible for them, the impact that not dealing with this in a timely fashion is having. So that it depends on the context, it depends on the issue, but they're hoping that this makes it easier for you to sell the customer more of what they should be buying.
Yeah, well, you think about your credit score. Well, why is the credit score important to you? Well, I would like to go get a home. All right, well, you have to have a credit score at a certain point. At least to me, the context is, okay, your score is 300, 400. That means your risk of having a cyber event or having a major outage of hardware causing major productivity downtime is higher. And what's the acceptable risk, Mr. Client? And when it's your budget, so you got to tell me how we can help you get there. But it's all in how you frame it, Rich. You're bang on.
Hey, okay, so here's another question. Who came up with the scale for these scores, right? Why is the worst score 300 and the highest 850? Why isn't it like 0 to 1,000? Like, why is 0 300? I don't understand this.
Could not tell you, but it was probably the same person who came up with the SAT scoring system or whatever they.
See, that's what I love when I get on the show with you guys. Matt is such a deep philosophical thinker that you go, where the hell did that just come from? I think he just threw a hot dog from left field.
I guarantee it didn't have cream cheese on it because I would never do that. Yeah, I don't know. I think about this kind of stuff. Like, why is that the case? It's really, really weird. So, Scott, if you could come up with the perfect scale for credit scores for this, what would that be? 1 to 10, 0 to 1,000, zebra to llama? What would it be?
I think everybody would identify that 0 usually means pretty bad. Why do we start at a 300, or why does the SAT start? I don't know. There's probably some deep logical reason that some mathematician and an algorithm somewhere came up with that I'm not smart enough to understand. But yeah, to me, it would be like, 0 to 10, 0 to 100, 0 to 1,000, 0 to something, so that you know where it's perfect. Why do you cut it at a specific number? Again, above my pay grade. I don't think I'll ever be able to figure out that. That's like one of the mysteries of the universe, man.
And I think we should go with like a fruit and vegetable scale. Like 0 is asparagus, and the highest score is, say, like pineapple, right? So you could say, customer, your score is kind of like, is butternut squash. I think everyone could relate to that.
And now you've just upset everybody that likes butternut squash. So make sure the emails are at Matt. That's where those ones go to. Rich, I got your back. I got you.
All right, let's move on from the fruit scale and talk about Liongard, who's added endpoint data to the unified visibility platform. Rich, tell us about this.
Yeah, and I think this is going to be kind of a big deal to people who use Liongard's software. So Liongard, for folks who don't know, and this is where there is a little bit of overlap with what Gradient is doing around billing reconciliation. That Liongard's big mission is to tie into all of the different product systems that you and your customers use and pull all information about all those assets together into one place. So that you can kind of see and compare and report. And so they call this solution that they sell a unified visibility platform. You know, they unify visibility into all the different assets that you're responsible for. Up until basically last Friday, all of the assets that they were unifying for you have been software assets. So operating systems, cloud solutions, applications. What they sort of quietly announced last week and will officially launch, although the service out there right now is a full-scale production service, but the official launch happens in January, and they're calling it Endpoint Visibility. So in addition to all those different software assets that you could track through Liongard before, now you can track Windows workstations and servers running either Windows Server or a couple of different Linux distributions. Now, there are going to be some people who are thinking, well, I already track those hardware assets through my RMM tool. Two big differences here. And so first of all is the Liongard folks will say you're going to be getting much, much more detailed information about those endpoints through our solution than you do through the RMM solution. So you're not just going to track some basic things about a laptop, say. You're going to find out what network it's connected to, what ISP the network is utilizing, connection quality, download speed, bandwidth, jitter, just in the area of connectivity, password policies, permission. So it's a very, very extensive, detailed list of attributes that they're going to be tracking for you for those devices. And then even more significantly is they are maintaining a complete 18-month archive of all that information. And this applies to anything else, you know, the software stuff that they're tracking as well. But if you want to run the clock back, so you know, if you know something has changed on this laptop, but you're not sure what it is, and you want to see exactly what state that laptop was in a week ago, or a month ago, or 6 months ago, you can kind of wind the clock back and see and get a complete snapshot of those attributes at that time, which can be hugely beneficial for you know, diagnostic purposes. But as Liongard points out, in an audit scenario, that can actually be a really handy thing to be able to point to as well. One last thing, well, I guess two last things to point out. And one is this is a particularly timely feature these days, given that there are still people working from home at least part of the week, and who knows what they're using, what, you know, hardware they're on to do that. It can be very difficult for an MSP to figure out what precisely what hardware they're responsible for managing. This is designed to make that easier. And then also at a time when we hear about RMM related security issues and RMM tools being weaponized in that way, it's worth pointing out this is a read-only technology. So it is not one more system that an attacker can use to get into an endpoint and do something nefarious to it. It's consuming information. It's not changing the endpoint in any way. And to that point, that's why this is not, you know, Liongard is not competing with the RMM vendors. They're just helping you collect more information than the RMM vendors can provide.
So one question, so this rollback feature to see what it looks like, it sounds cool. Do you actually physically like roll the device back to that state on the device, or is there like a dashboard you get a list of the files in it, or are you like putting it in a VM and seeing the state of the system then? Did they kind of go into more detail on that?
I think it's much closer to the latter. It's something that you do through the Liongard interface as opposed to like, rolling the device back and so on. I've never actually seen what that tool looks like. But I do remember it being described once upon a time as like a slider, basically, sort of like a, but in any event, yeah, I think you go into the Liongard interface and you say, for this device, I want to see what this snapshot looked like on that date, and it calls that up for you. And then, you can compare it to today's status so that you can see where the differences are.
That's pretty cool.
I'm not a partner. I'm not so this is the closest analogy I can give you from what I've seen. If you've ever heard of Wayback Machine, which takes a look at a snapshot of a website as it appears today, and you can move the scale and it will let you see what the website looked like 3 months ago or 4 months ago. Same kind of idea. What Liongard's doing is you can see what's on the machine today. You move the scale and then you can compare to what it was there and you go, well, what's changed? Why is that changed? How'd that happen? And it gives you a time frame when that kind of stuff happened. That's my understanding.
Now, is this a tool, as an MSP, is this a tool that's of interest to you, or do you have a different kind of solution for this? Have you needed something like this?
We do not have it in our stack currently. So I'm probably not the best one to comment on it. I've seen it. We have some processes built around some stuff. So we have not required that as yet. But I know many partners and they just love it.
Interesting. And so, Rich, do they talk about pricing at all? Like, is this expensive thing to roll out, or is it reasonable?
Let me see here, because I believe what they're doing is I think it becomes a fee-based edition when they roll it out officially next year. But yeah, I don't think it's going to add much to the base level of what you're paying Liongard today. The cost variability will come from the number of devices that you have under management. So from a storage standpoint, like, just in terms of their overhead, right? It's one thing for them to store snapshots of software. You think about the number of software tools that a given end user is running, and that'll be a relatively low number. And now you start thinking about the number of laptops and smartphones and server. So they're going to be, Liongard is going to be storing a lot more information about assets. And so the more assets you are asking them to track for you, the more it's going to cost you to take advantage of this endpoint visibility tool. But I don't think they actually start charging on that basis until next year. And I don't think they're prepared just yet to say what that cost is going to look like.
$100 million.
Would have been awesome if you were like holding a stuffed cat when you
yeah, I had the hairline and the pinky. That's as far as I could get.
I love it. All right, well, we'll keep an eye on this, and we'll see when they actually do fully roll it out, what it looks like, and it might be something that is of interest. And of course, folks, we're just kind of touching the surface of a lot of these stories. There's a lot more of that information in here. So go to the show sheet for episode 207. ChannelProNetwork.com is where you'll find that. And we'll put links to this and all the stories we're talking about right here. On a lot of your phones, if you're subscribed to the audio version, you can open it up and you can see the links there. Or if you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit the like button. Super important. Leave a comment if you can. We'd love to hear that. Tell us any comment. Tell us what you think. Tell us what your favorite toppings on hot dogs are. We're easy. We want to know it all. But and then subscribe there. But if you open up the show description, that's where we put all the links there for you as well. So you can go and read along and kind of get all the juicy details in this. So Rich, I think that kind of wraps up the news for the week, but we've got another story that we're going to talk about that's on the site called Service Manager Success Secrets. Now, if it's on the site and it's talking about these, is it really a secret anymore?
Well, these were well-kept secrets until ChannelPro brought them to you.
So, folks, they're not secrets now, but it's important to know stuff. What are the secrets? Shh, don't tell anybody.
So this is, we were talking here about the cover story for our November issue. It was written by our managing editor, Colleen Fry. Busy time of year. She was unable to join us on the show today, unfortunately, but I cannot recommend this story to you too heavily. Now, I am biased, of course, and I'm always urging people to read all the stories that we talk about. But this really, really is very good. And I think it deals with a topic that doesn't, in my experience, doesn't get discussed quite as much as it probably should, which is When do you need a service manager? What is a service manager? Should that person do? What kind of person should you put in that role? More successful and mature MSPs have a service manager, and they will tell you this is a critical ingredient in their success. So the service manager, and we'll start with, when do you need one? And differences of opinion, obviously, on that. There's somebody quoted in the story who says when you get into that 8 to 10 employee kind of range, and everybody's kind of doing everything, you've probably reached the point where you need somebody who is just focused on that service management role. There are other people who are going to tell you, as soon as you can afford it, bring on a service manager, because what that person is going to do, their job basically is to sit in between the techs on one hand and the customers on the other. And they are responsible for keeping you as profitable as possible, but also for keeping the customers happy and the technicians happy. So that's essentially what they're doing. They're right in between, the financials, the customers, and the techs, and making sure that everything is running smoothly and everybody is coming away from their interactions happy. Now, so who do you put into that role? I think there is and the story discusses the fact there's kind of a reflex once somebody decides, I think I need a service manager, to figure out, well, who's my best tech? That's my service manager. And there are a number of reasons why that might not be the right decision to make. And so, first of all, you may not want to take your best tech away from closing tickets. There may actually be an argument to be made. Let that person continue to do what they're doing really well. There might be somebody else on the team who could fit into this role. The other thing, of course, is technical know-how is part of what makes for a successful service manager, but that's really only one part of the role, right? I mean, you're dealing with customers, you're dealing with technicians. People skills are going to be very important. Communication skills, that's not necessarily something that your best tech has. Another thing, whoever it is you put in that role, if they started out as a technician, it's kind of a baseline, a given that you want to promote somebody into this role who is, as somebody in the article says, a model technician, meaning don't make the person who never documents their work and never updates the time log your service manager. I mean, the person who's going to be responsible for making sure that all of these processes and rules are followed needs to be somebody who by nature follows the rules and utilizes the processes already.
Lead by example. You got to walk the walk, not just talk the talk.
Yep, absolutely. They've got to have some business sense, because again, their work is playing into profitability, so they got to be able to understand the financials and understand what moves the dials in an accounting system. They need to have good people and communication skills. They also need to be, as an MSP quoted in the story says, a good butt kicker, because there are going to be times when you've got to kind of push to get something done. So somebody who can, without alienating people, push people to get work done when that's required, that's going to be important. So, and I'm looking ahead here to a little bit in terms of like mistakes to avoid. And yeah, I mean, actually, it gets to a lot of what the article talks about gets to stuff that we've discussed. I'll just reiterate again, and we'll have a link to the story in the show notes for this episode. And I really do encourage people to go read this, because the service manager role is maybe a little bit underappreciated among MSPs. I think there are a lot of questions about when I need one and what that person should do and who that person should be. And there really is a lot of good, detailed information, based on input from experienced MSPs out there that it's worth diving into.
So I can't help but say that while we were kind of discussing this, I had this scene from the movie Office Space in my head with the character Tom sitting in the office with the two Bobs. And the Bobs are saying, well, why can't the customers just go right to the tech? Like, what is it that you do here? So is the service manager the middleman, or what does that person do?
So before I answer that question, I don't even know if you have a service manager, Scott, or how you kind of handle that role.
We are not quite there with a service manager, but I will tell you in my thoughts and dreams that that person is the traffic cop of the business. They're making sure the right techs are on the right tickets, doing the right things at the right dollar amount in the right time frames, and they're kind of coaching the team, if you will, on the service side, and they're making sure the client satisfaction levels stay up. One of my good friends, Charles Henson, who I believe you guys had on the show here one time, he's got a service manager, and he directly is tied into the profitability, make sure that the deals are hitting the goals, if you will. So it's kind of that traffic cop, that perfect intersection, blowing the whistle at all the four corners and making sure the stuff is flowing.
So they're doing a lot more than just serving as kind of a middle person between customer and tech. It's not that the customers can't talk to the techs or the techs have no people skills. It's just they're the ones that are kind of seeing everything from a high level and organizing all of that. Am I getting that right?
Yes, you are. And if you stop and think about it, like, so you're the technician and I'm the client, and I'm like, Matt, you told me you were going to be, and now I'm so frustrated. Oh, now I'm going to like go start looking somewhere else. Well, they got a service manager. So when you ask to speak to a manager, usually the demeanor will change because now you've got someone. So it's also kind of a pressure valve, if you will. So if you got a client that's frustrated, that's that pressure valve that can help let some of that out and help figure out what's going on and get them to the proper resolution. So there's a lot of pieces that go into that position to be successful. And good service managers can be hard to find. So I've heard many of my peers, and Rich, one of the first things you just said was, you probably don't want to promote your best technician to become the service manager. Ding, 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 give that man a hot dog, because that's what I've heard the most horror stories about, because you took the guy that was the most productive, you stuck him on a desk doing something he really wasn't super comfortable with because he's a tech at heart, and that's what he really wants to do. You kind of have to have a little bit of that business savvy behind you. You have to have a little bit of negotiating. Those people skills become very strong. So I was happy to hear that was like one of the very first things that's a warning sign. And it really doesn't matter the game. You don't take your best sales guy and make him the sales manager because you just took him on the field. It's kind of the same idea.
So when is the right time, in your opinion, Scott, to bring this role into your organization?
Usually about 3 to 6 months before you realize you needed it. Hindsight always being 20/20. But I think from a financial point of view, once you're starting to push past that 1.5 million or 2 million, you're going to have that position, because your business owner, if he's being a true business owner, is out managing the sales team or setting the strategy or whatnot, and may not be able to see the things day to day. That service manager is kind of that backstop, that he's that go-to traffic cop, for lack of a better term. So where is it? It's going to be different for every organization depending on automation and what tools you're using and what services you have. But I would definitely say once you start pushing that 1.5 to 2 and you don't have one, if maybe it's possible. I don't know everything, Matt, strange as it may seem, but my gut tells me, based on talking to my peers, that's kind of the spot that you would be at, that you would definitely need one. You probably need it sooner.
Yeah. Rich, any other highlights in this story that you want to point out?
Just one thing that came to mind as we were talking there a little bit. I mean, the title is service manager. And it's not just because you're managing service delivery. And in essence, that is what the role is you're putting somebody in charge of managing the company's delivery of services to the customers. Because if you don't have somebody in that role, and you've gotten past the point of having a handful of techs and so on, it's all sort of chaotic self-management. You need somebody with the big picture point of view, prioritizing, holding people accountable, making sure that the company is delivering for the customer. But that is a management role. I came up with the analogy, Rich, based on what you're saying. You can't let everybody on the football field be making their own calls. That's why you got a quarterback. Yep. That's what your service manager is doing. He's the quarterback of the team, making sure that everybody's in the right spot, doing the right things, so you can win the game. Totally. Do I get a hot dog for that?
Yeah. Service manager's got to have a good arm too, apparently. All right. So, well, cool. We're going to put a link to the story. Go and read it. It is a really good read. and go check that out and think about that role for your organization when it would make sense for you. Now, with that, we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we've got an interview with Jay McBain. He's the principal analyst at Forrester Research. He's got a top 10 Uber list of trends that we're gonna kind of dive into a little bit. Really, really interesting stuff. Jay's been on before in the past. Very smart guy. It's awesome. Definitely tune in. Unfortunately, Scott wasn't able to make it for the interview, but he will join us again on the other side. So this is not goodbye to Scott. We will see him in just a little while. So stick around for that. We will be back in just a few.
Ready to grow your business in ways you haven't even imagined yet? Tune in to B2B Tech Talk, Ingram Micro's global podcast, to hear what's next in the IT space. Industry leaders, subject matter experts, and more share their valuable insights to provide listeners with the best growth opportunities, with some interesting stories sprinkled in along the way. Listen, subscribe, and follow B2B Tech Talk wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, because it's time to imagine more.
Okay. And Rich, you're good with the intro? Looks good?
Yeah, looks good.
All right. Then without further ado, here we go. And welcome back to part 2 of ChannelPro Weekly. You know, when Forrester's Jay McBain makes predictions, people would be wise to listen. He recently predicted tech and telco spending is going to double in the next decade from $3.5 to $7 trillion. And that's trillion with a T. With that growth, he believes there will be a ton of change to go with it. And to highlight the channel's evolving role, he created a top 10 list of Uber-level trends affecting the channel that, if taken advantage of, could accelerate your company's growth significantly. Now, here to discuss this list of trends is the man himself, principal analyst at Forrester Research, Jay McBain. Welcome, Jay.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Always glad to be back.
Yeah, it's great to have you back. It's been a while since you've been on. In fact, we were kind of reminiscing before we started here that the last time you were with us was at the end of April of 2020. So we were all still in the lockdown, and coronavirus pandemic was still a very new and recent thing, and we were all still trying to figure out what was going to happen with that. So there's probably a lot there we could discuss on, like, what were some of the things we talked about then, and like what kind of surprised you looking back now that we may not have thought about then. So why don't we touch on that? How has the pandemic been for you?
Yeah, I mean, in April we were kind of in the middle of the thick of things, and we're not out of it. So there's obviously light at the end of the tunnel now. There's not an E variant coming after the D. When I live in Florida, I always think of hurricanes that have, names, and they do it alphabetically. So we're always, once you get done with the first hurricane, you look to the next letter of the alphabet. You're looking out into the Atlantic Ocean, thinking when it's coming. So that's the PTSD I have about the virus is the next variant. But, when I wrote something back then called, the channel's opening up, but doing it slowly. And it's really been media companies and associations and others that more rely on events for their income and other things than the big vendors. No big vendors today are having really events. And many of them, by the way, at the $1 trillion level have actually pushed off to 2023. So we're not going to attend, Microsoft or AWS or Google's event or IBM's or whoever else. But we are going to be engaging again. And, Rich and I were just saying that, we've probably seen each other the last 3 times this month in person. And that's a little bit back to normal. And that feels different. And I think everyone out there is feeling, this difference again.
Yeah. And so has there been anything that's really surprised you in the last year and a half of how things kind of went, or did everything kind of go as you thought it would?
Yeah. Well, what surprised us is, I'll say that there is a new future of work, and this impacts every one of, the listeners here and all of us, where, 30% of people are not going back to the office in any way. Work is what they do, not where they go. And when you think about the channel opportunity wrapped around that, it's massive. The security and the compliance and the backup and the continuity and the automation, there's just triple digit growth numbers getting thrown off almost on all these trends. That being said, though, and obviously the forklift to the cloud and everything else that's going on, the opportunities are accelerating because of the pandemic. And what I did, a few weeks ago, I put together the David Letterman top 10 list. But we're looking at things that we were looking at before the pandemic. Obviously things getting more digital, e-commerce and marketplaces, which we've been talking about for decades. Well, they grew more in the first 3 months than the last 10 years combined. So 1/3 of the US economy is now going marketplace. We have a changing buyer, and we know that this buyer is becoming more like a consumer. The way you buy hardware, software, and services is going to look more and more like the way you buy a car. And we're learning more about these digital moments. We're learning more about but all this comes back to the pandemic put that on steroids. And now, what does this industry look like by that end of that $7 trillion that you mentioned, when 1/3 of it goes through marketplace? We're already at 17%, so we're already well on the way. That's not money flowing through the channel or distribution. That's money flowing through Microsoft or AWS or Salesforce. But what does that mean? We look at 1/3 of the industry going direct. Inside the pandemic, we saw companies like Zoom, become household names, and they're a product-led growth company. They don't have a resell function, but every one of those dollars throws off about $5 of services to the channel, and they're starting to recognize what that is. Slack got bought by $27.7 billion by Salesforce, inside this pandemic, and that's also a product-led growth model. So there's no resell opportunity. In fact, Salesforce, who's bigger than SAP now in revenue and worth more than Oracle in valuation, does not have a resell function. Every nickel they make goes through the marketplace, but each one of those nickels throws off a quarter, 5x services. And the partners right now that are growing by triple digits are getting obsessed over not only the subscription consumption economy, but the multiplier that it throws out. What skills do I need? What practices do I need? What kind of partnerships, what kind of ecosystem do I need to build looking forward? And that's the big changes, is all this acceleration on all these 10 different trends.
So there are two of those trends that you highlighted that go to, you were kind of talking before about both where people are buying and who's doing the buying. And there are two of those 10 trends you highlight that kind of get to that. And so I'll start with this one. Let's talk about the marketplaces, because you said that 20 leading marketplaces are going to take 80% of the marketplace opportunities online. The other 20% will go into niche marketplaces. Will the folks who are listening to or watching this program right now get any of that revenue from any of those marketplaces, or is this a function of vendors either going direct or going to market through distribution, and that resale opportunity that a lot of people used to count on for at least part of their revenue, that's just going away?
Yeah, there's pieces of it, but there's a changing economy around it. So marketplaces today, and again, we look at the top 20, and you know who they are, the big hyperscalers, the big SaaS companies, not just Salesforce, but ServiceNow and Workday and Marketo and NetSuite and HubSpot. You know who these companies are, they're household names. The traditional marketplaces like the IBMs and SAPs and Oracles, I can count off probably 16 of the winners of this decade already. We're still waiting for what Dell's going to do. The e-commerce leader of the 90s has been absolutely silent on marketplaces, which still shocks me every morning when I wake up. Cisco has been silent for a company that's going all in subscription. 31% of their business is software today. They've been silent on marketplaces. We're watching the client server era leaders with great interest on how they're going to participate, both on other marketplaces. When HPE sells GreenLake on AWS, that's pretty cool. Multi-cloud, hybrid cloud. We know that all functions and all workloads and stuff are not all going to the cloud. It makes sense to, build out this environment. But I'm interested in HPE being the lead on the deal, and then AWS coming in on the layers higher, and obviously security and other things as well. So that whole marketplace and kind of the last 5 or 4 slots, let's say, in that top 20 list, are still up for grabs. And so that's of great interest to us. And we're in the early innings. So the answer to your question, and the niche, by the way, are companies like Miracle, which you may have never heard of. Last week, they raised $555 million in private equity. $500 million. I don't know what that does to the cap table. However, that's an incredible amount of money. And they're a leader in Europe. And they know how to sell into the 50 countries in Europe through e-commerce and marketplaces. But that's enough fuel to get them into the North American and the Asia Pacific market. AppDirect is raising hundreds of millions of dollars. A company like Cloud Blue, which is owned by Ingram, is making noise in this space, collecting these trillions of dollars. A company like Vendasta, which nobody's ever heard of, it's in Saskatoon, Canada, raised $129 million. So Wall Street is on fire around marketplaces, and they have billions of dollars they're ready to write checks to anybody who will collect them. And so this idea of this marketplace, how does a channel partner succeed? When the dollars flow, not through you, but through someone else. Microsoft collects the dollars. This is the big change that's happening. We look at all these marketplaces, we look at the features, the functions, how they're building in partnership strategies. 96% of Microsoft's revenue is partner assisted. The big change now, though, is not like Office 365 or even Dynamics. The big change is their future technologies around Azure and things are only about 20 to 30% resold. So in that market, they understand 96% of that business, though, is partner assisted. The partners helped get that customer to the dance. The partner helped them get on the dance floor that first 30 days of the subscription. And then the partners are helping every 30 days after drive adoption, integration, stickiness, upsell, cross-sell, enrichment. There's so many parts of this that the partners are assisting all of it, that Microsoft has to pull that value, which is somewhere between $5 and $9 for every dollar of Azure, for example. And they have to make the partner successful in that marketplace. So let's disconnect the channel from the flow of money. I don't want to really collect money at low margin, which you might be doing in Office 365 today, and then have to go bill the customer and go break their knees when they don't pay and eat that cost of money for 30, 60, net 90 type stuff. It's the idea that how can I go get those $5 in that $100,000 Microsoft deal? How can I go ask the customer for $500,000 at 75% margin? And the CEO of Microsoft right now is out there in the press talking about unlocking trillions of dollars. So how do I connect to those dollars and not think about, how my customer wants to buy and, they're a millennial, they're very digitally focused. They want to finish their 28 digital moments with a digital transaction. Let's not, concern that. Let's broaden the conversation and elevate the conversation of how I'm going to go ask for that $500,000. And that's the change with marketplaces. And you're seeing partners come into the Microsoft as well as all 20. Salesforce has actually taken the lead in this space, functionality wise, to allow partners access to that multiplier and make them successful and grow them by triple digits without having them focus. Because Salesforce, by the way, doesn't have a resale program. Neither does HubSpot. Neither does most subscription businesses. That's kind of different, and we need to disconnect that thinking.
So just for folks who don't understand, literally, if you are responsible in some way for your customers buying a Salesforce subscription, you get no sort of commission on that. You collect no monthly. They pay nothing direct in that traditional fashion to their partners. But Salesforce partners, as Salesforce reminds the world every year, make a ton of money on all of the stuff that goes around being a Salesforce user, the implementation, customization, ongoing support and training. Is that the model? As the marketplaces become the place that these services are being acquired, and the vendors, in essence, are going direct more often because they can, essentially, is the ChannelPro of the future not going to be making money, margin off of the licensing fees that Microsoft is collecting, say, on a cloud service? They're going to be making their money on everything that the customer needs to be successful with that product?
Yeah, in our industry, there's never a binary answer to everything. Salesforce has a lot of partners that are resale type partners. They're grandfathered in, they will still be part of that. There are customers that say to Salesforce, to pound sand, I like to buy through this. I like to buy through Accenture, or I like to buy through my managed service provider, or I like to buy through my reseller. So Salesforce, you go figure out the back end, but this is how I spend my money. Either you want my money or I'll walk somewhere else. So the world is nuanced, and there's no 100%, even though big companies are going 100% all in subscription. We know that 100% of buyers are not there. And by the way, 2/3 of buyers aren't there and may never get there. So the fact of the matter is these powerful companies are making powerful statements, but in the end, they're not walking away from money. So there's always a nuance in the answer, but let's focus on Salesforce. Here's a company that is bigger than SAP, valued more than Oracle today. It will be the next $1 trillion company, I believe. So if you're looking at your RRSP, your 401k, I think this company's got a lot of growth in it in terms of being recognized as one of those big five. So if I look at Salesforce, they're recruiting 250,000 partners today. There is an absolute focus on bringing on hundreds of thousands of more influencers, long style retention partners, like you said, the implementers, the integrators, the security focused people, the automation focused people. They're making acquisitions left and right, Tableau focused people, MuleSoft focused people, Slack focused, UCAS, CCAS focused people. There's a lot going on. So in that world, there's a lot of opportunity to become a Salesforce partner and participate in almost $1 trillion, $1.2 trillion economy around Salesforce. But they're kind of telling you that if you're thinking about making a nickel on a $99 monthly user subscription, that's not exactly what they want to do. And everybody's going to have a slightly different answer to that. Because HP, for example, HPE, who sells $1 million servers for a living, or networking gear, whatever it is, that's now $9,000 a month forever. In 2022, they're kind of all in GreenLake. And so their point to the channel is, I know on that $1 million that we've reduced your margin for the last 40 years. So even now it's not that great, but anything on $1 million is pretty good. And then there's back end volume rebates and market development funds and new customer bonuses. So there is a way to eke out a living. Well, when you reduce that to $9,000, I don't know any reseller MSP of any type that can pay the mortgage on a margin, low margin on $9,000. Yeah, it's recurring and everything else, but there gets a point where the customer says, I'm going to acquire that. I'm going to provision and procure that with the other 7 layers of security and emerging tech and other things to solve my problem. And I'm not looking to 7 different places to go buy all that and raise and lower that, monthly meter. It's like, I want the value-based pricing, the usage-based pricing. I want that to all come back. So last thing I'll say is, you don't buy Netflix from your cable guy in the white van. You buy it on a digital subscription. And every day every month they hammer you at $12 or $13. It's gone up, $1 a year now for 4 straight years. You don't care because during a pandemic, we all binge Netflix. When we see it on the credit card, we kind of go, yeah, I'm going to give them another 30 days. I like what they're doing. And we do that. We renew them in our own minds every time we see it on the credit card. There is no renewal that I have to sign off on or anything else, but value. Is it part of my habits? Is it sticky in my life? Is it, highly adopted in my household? If they keep answering those questions, yes, they can keep upselling me. If they get better actors, better content, everything else, I'll pay that extra dollar, pay that extra dollar. I don't know what the top end is, but I know my cable company charges $150. So I know there's a delta between 13 and 150, and I know that they're going to explore that delta as they grow. But the fact of the matter is, there's nobody in the middle of that subscription. The flow of money is completely separate than the value earned and how I'm going to wire up my house and how I'm going to execute that subscription.
Well, it's interesting too, because in that model, the MSP, like let's say that is the trend, and people would be provisioning their Salesforce and their Office 365 subscriptions. That makes the MSP a lot less sticky in that future, and a lot easier to shift around for the end user, right?
Yeah, it doesn't though, because it's very complicated. It's not Netflix in this case. I've got some problems when I bring in Salesforce that, I'm either being breached as we speak or I'm being breached this afternoon. The fact of the matter is, there's a whole 7 layers of security because my entire company sits out in my CRM. Every customer, every order, my whole life sits there. And if that goes out and, my customer data this could be the end of the company. So yeah, there's a security layer. I live in an industry that's regulated, legislated. There's a compliance layer. I can't go and put humans on every part of Salesforce. I need to write lightning bolts and lightning flows to make all this work and humans to be parallel to it, especially in the great resignation. I can't be, thinking that humans are going to run my Salesforce. So I need automation at scale. This is creating a data lake that's very, very deep. I need deep level data people to come in and connect the dots, help me connect the dots in this, prescriptive, predictive type of world. So let me just walk through, 100 examples of Salesforce opportunity. This is that $4.65 that clicks on for every dollar. And every Salesforce customer now knows, because it's public. Mark Benioff kicks off every Dreamforce with this comment of the ecosystem. If you're buying $100,000 of Salesforce today, you better have $500,000 in budget to get it to work. We sell you a bag of flour and a bag of sugar, and it's up to you to bake the cake. You can do that internally and eat all that cost internally, or most customers do it externally. And here's how it works. So this is the total cost of ownership that I spent my entire 27-year career avoiding that conversation. The whole managed services industry was created out of that really bad TCO of Wintel laptops and desktops. That whole ugly TCO is what managed services solved for and did a great job convincing 23% of every company on the planet to go and outsource that piece. Well, now all the companies have turned that on its head and are actually telling their customers what the TCO is. You want to get HubSpot to work? It's $5.80. So yeah, it's $100,000 deal or $1 million deal with us, but you have to have significant dollars, $5 million more dollars to go spend with system integrators and consultants and digital agencies, managed service providers, maybe others in this stack, maybe emerging tech. But here's the exact dollars that you need and how you're going to end up spending them to delight you so that every month that you renew HubSpot for the rest of your life. And that $5.80 is the report that's publicly available on the internet that everyone listening today should be out Googling and trying to download that and figure out where the nickels and dimes are and what kind of business to build to go explore that if HubSpot's your choice. Because in many companies, the head of marketing spends more money on technology now than the head of technology. So if I'm going to get in front of that marketing buyer at my clients that I already have, do I know the VP of marketing? Do I know the CMO? Do I know the dollars they're spending? Because I can intercept those dollars. And if I can make $1 on top of every dollar that HubSpot makes by doing stuff I already know how to do, holy smokes, that's a completely different model of going forward.
So let's talk about the buyer a little bit, because you were kind of talking about the Netflix experience before. I mean, the people who are most apt to have their expectations set by that Netflix-like experience, the people who have known no other experience, are millennials. And one of your 10 predictions is that within 4 years, a majority of buyers within IT will be millennials. Now, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think within 4 years, a majority of channel pros will be millennials. So what do the folks in our audience here who may be older than the people that they are increasingly selling to going forward, what do they kind of need to know and factor into how they go to market?
Yeah, so I break the conversation into two things. To take our Netflix example, that's a low consideration purchase. If I buy that thing for $12 and it's a complete mistake, I'm 30 days later, I'm out $12 and I'm out of that contract. But let's start talking about what we sell. I mean, we sell high consideration products. So let's relate this now to buying a car. And for the last time you bought a car, think back, because it's probably very visible in your memory, the 28 digital moments it took you to go from 365 brands of car, that's the number, and 62 companies down to the one that you walked on the dealership floor. How did you go through? What videos did you watch? What magazines did you read? What social networks? What neighbors did you talk to? You could probably tell me what 28 moments you went to get from those 365 to go and to spend $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 at a dealership. But I'll tell you that almost everyone universally that I talked to in their last car, the broken part of that experience was the dealership. It's physical. You sit down for 8 hours as they try to get you a deal with the manager, and you're sitting there for 8 hours. You've already downloaded the invoice price of the car. You've already downloaded the back-end rebates. You know exactly what the deal's going to look like. So you're sitting there and you already, talked to 1,000 people who bought that same car from that same dealer because they've uploaded their, specifics on the internet. So you're sitting there going, I know within $100 of accuracy what I'm walking out with. So let me pay you $100 more and you Carvana that to my driveway and hand me the keys. And that saves me 8 hours. It saves me a lot of heartache. And the internet has just blown up. Those 28 digital moments have blown up the physical experience to the point I don't need or want it. But guess what? 50 states still have law that you have to buy through a dealer. And much to Tesla and other chagrin, they've had difficulty breaking through that regulation because of the lobby and everything else. So now think about software. Now think about hardware. I know exactly what I want to buy. I've configured it. I've priced it. I've invoiced it. I know more than the salesperson ever will. And you're taking me through kind of a physical dealership experience to piece these 7 things together on top of HubSpot that I need to solve my problem. If I know everything to the part number level, and I know, and I've heard from thousands of others that this solved their problem, I'd like to finish my digital journey with a digital transaction. But 90% of that is wrapped around partners. Who owned those 28 moments? I know when you bought a car, it might have been Motor Trend or Edmunds. I know the places that you got the invoice. I know you did a Carfax. I probably know that you went to their website, whoever you ended up buying, because that's where you configured the car. But there's so many different elements. I know the owners, and I can predict those owners of those 28 moments. In a world that's post-cookie, where Apple and Google are not hoovering those anonymous moments that you're trying to have, and there's no data lake of those 28 different steps you took, the only way that Honda or BMW is going to get access is partnering up with those 28 owners, attributing the work that they're doing to what you end up doing and purchasing, and then sharing data with them. That's new technology. That's new processes. That's new programs. That's a new set of people that understand those skills. And those are non-transacting, because none of those places, Motor Trend doesn't take your money, but they have cool YouTube videos. They have great side-by-side comparisons in their magazine. They might have been very influential getting you into that BMW versus a Mercedes or whatever else. But the fact of the matter is they're not really being recognized that way. And you guys as a media company are very influential. This podcast is influential. The magazine is influential. The events that you run are influential. And now vendors are starting to recognize that and say that, ChannelPro is never going to take the customer's money and buy through distribution. And so you're not in that element. You're a non-transacting partner, but a very important influencer. So we'd like to spend money with you, not in advertising or sponsorship of an event, but we understand that you have these wonderful intersections for marrying partners with vendors, marrying vendors with customers, and all this, noise and clutter, which you guys, get a better signal to noise ratio. And so these are the conversations we see coming in the next few years.
So let's talk about it. The number one item on your top 10 list goes to that role that the partners who succeed in the future are going to play in this whole kind of relationship between the customer and the partner and the vendor, et cetera. And you said that people who can take the orchestration role are going to be upsized winners in this decade. There's no single throat to choke anymore. There's no single trusted advisor anymore, but there is a level of orchestration. So in essence, it sounds like the replacement for the single trusted advisor is the lead, sort of the general contractor who can help coordinate all the other people that the customer is going to have to interact with.
Absolutely. So, if you think through your buyer, you think through the town or city you're in, you think of all the revenue going through and everything else, there's a lot of moving parts. And those moving parts are increasing. Emerging tech, there's 800,000 companies trying to get in front of your customer. In software today, there's 175,000 companies who have built some widget or workflow or something trying to get in front of your customer. That's soon to be 1 million, by the way, by the end of the decade. There are millions of partners. Every company in every industry are becoming tech services companies. 78% of marketing agencies, remember that marketing buyer who spends a lot of money? 78% of them are now tech services companies. 81% of accountants. I could go through all 27 industries. Everybody's coming in. And the fact is, it's not competitive with you because they're not building, management skills around infrastructure. They're not building security skills deeply. They're all just looking for their piece of that $5 pie. With that HubSpot, by the way, that $5.80, there's over $1 that kicks out to digital agencies. It's content, it's creative, it's concierge. There's so many cool things that managed service providers don't have the first clue on how to put pixels on a page, but they don't need to. There's so many elements to that $5.80. It's a room full of people. We know that in those 28 moments, there's 5 that really stick out. And there's 5 owners of those moments or multiple moments that stick out. If the MSP's in the room or not, you can still play an orchestration role. As the money goes to spend, as they go to spend the money, whether they buy it through you, they buy it through a marketplace, or they end up going to buy it direct, really shouldn't matter because there's an orchestration mode there that's valuable to the customer and obviously to the vendors. But then the fun starts in a subscription model, which most of this world is going to in our world, technology. You can't have, Dell and Cisco and HP and IBM, Lenovo and Nutanix, and every week there's a new announcement of companies going 100% subscription. You got to build your company to where this every 30 days forever is your sweet spot. And you driving adoption of that Cisco technology is going to be very worthwhile to you at 75% margins, but it's going to be very worthwhile to Cisco to recognize the work you're doing there inside their own products. They're going to see that adoption, and they're going to come out and offer you, perhaps some money to do more of what you're doing. If you're helping with those deeper integrations or stickiness, that habit forming stuff, at some point, Cisco or HP or Dell is going to recognize that. They don't yet. They don't have the technology and the scale to do that, but they will soon. They're going to come and offer you a check that says, can you do more of that? Because it really helps us. And it really helps, Wall Street, give us a better valuation when you do all that great stuff. Upsell, cross-sell, enrichment, all this wonderful stuff you do every 30 days forever as a managed service provider. You're the one with our customer for life. We need that customer for life. Our investors need that customer for life. We just haven't figured out a way to pay you yet for that. And so we'd like to, maybe over the next couple of years, learn more about what you're doing there and then stack rank you against other places we can write checks to. And that's going to be the future of what we call today gross to nets or front or back end margins and stuff. These are now capital dollars that these companies are going to sign checks for because they're better than hiring another direct salesperson. It's better than running a Super Bowl ad. If I could take that $5 million and spread it into my ecosystem, I know I get a bigger return. It comes faster and it's way more sticky. I need to build a network of partnerships and I need somebody to orchestrate all this activity at every moment in front of my customer. And that's where the future value, that's trillions of dollars of value in our industry.
It's very interesting. And you mentioned this a little earlier, and we're talking about all of this opportunity and all this growth and all of this additional spend. And then you have number 2 on your list, which is kind of interesting because we're talking about growth. And then you're saying, well, you know what, but also like 2/3, maybe 3/4 of the entire tech force is gonna resign. Like what is fueling that inside of all of this growth?
Yeah, and by the way, I don't believe that. There was a thing done by a learning management company a couple of weeks ago that said, 72% of all your employees are going to quit. And I look at that and I kind of smirk because 72% of those people do have to pay their mortgage. And when you're asked in a kind of a flimsy survey, everybody's a little angry right now. Everybody's kind of thinking about this new world and everything else. But I don't know anybody who knows anybody who can just walk out the door. And I don't see big opportunities based on the skill set that they have that they're just going to walk in and change the world. So the number is not going to be that high, but there is a resignation happening. This new future of work is real. The way you recognize these new millennial or Generation Z who are now coming into their first jobs after college, this is not Generation X, and this is not baby boomers. There is a divide between the former and the latter, and how you manage these people, how you incent them, how you motivate them, their worldview, their political view, everything changes. And so, from an HR perspective, there's things we need to be thinking about, but from customer perspective as well, you got to be thinking about this as well. And so this great resignation, which won't be a great resignation, but it'll be a great change in the future of work. It's going to trigger successful companies versus unsuccessful companies. And you're already seeing it out there in the press today as employees are coming together, not in a union, but they're coming together on social with open letters. Their ex-employees are coming in front of Congress to open up the books. This is the next generation. And Glassdoor and other places offer places for people to kind of spill their beans. And I think this is wonderful for everyone as an employee. And I think it's troublesome, for those leaders, in terms of looking at your culture, looking at the DNA, looking at, some call it woke, but looking at some of the things that happen inside your company and take them more seriously. And if you can delight these, newer generation employees, and if you can motivate them and put them on fire, again, that's another element to this triple-digit growth.
Very, very interesting stuff. Unfortunately, we are almost out of time, but there's a couple of things that you talked about that I want to touch on real fast. One was you said that, it's always up to the partner to kind of get them onto to get the end user onto the dance floor in relation to putting together something. Now, if you were getting on the dance floor with a company like Microsoft, what dance do you think Microsoft would be able to do?
Yeah, so with Microsoft, there's three things I would do. Recognize that today they have 470,000 active partners this quarter. So every quarter on a rolling 90-day basis, they have a $500,000 partners. So the first thing I wouldn't do with Microsoft is go say that I do all things to all people all the time, which most partners do. I would actually think of it more as SEO. There's 35 million things that you can tell Microsoft that you do. It's what buyer am I the best in front of? What sub-industry? There's 297 do I win in? What geography do I actually cover? What sector, segment, and size? 9, 49, 499, 4,000. And then the product areas. There's 250 product areas at Microsoft. You're not an expert in all of them. Let's just stop, with the all things thing. So if I could actually narrow down 35 million and become that chosen partner for mid-sized clinics in upstate New York in front of a marketing buyer, that's the new relationship that Microsoft's looking to differentiate you from a 500,000 other people. Keep in mind the second thing, there are 400 new partners joining Microsoft every single day. 80% of them are non-transacting, non-reselling type partners. So the future of Microsoft, and when you hear this is the third thing, when I go and read the CEO talk about unlocking trillions of dollars, this multiplier, and figuring out where those dollars are, big margin, big opportunity, very sticky dollars, I'm going to learn that the future of Microsoft and success in the Microsoft ecosystem isn't reselling Office 365 or Windows or soon to be Teams or Dynamics or Azure. I mean, the future is taking the $5 to $9 that those throw out, figure out what they are, develop and deliver those skills and practices, and orchestrate the rest. And that's the home run. That's the triple-digit growth if I'm going to walk into the front door of Microsoft. And those are the three things I'm going to do literally on day one. And I'm going to do that all digitally because all that exists on the internet and I can download all of that stuff and figure it out without talking to anybody.
Yeah, very, very cool. And we'll kind of close out on one kind of fun question. So you said that, when you subscribe to Netflix and you don't mind paying that $12, $30 a month. So name 3 shows that you binged while we were all kind of locked down that are worth checking out.
Well, I think I binged all of Netflix.
What did you watch on Netflix? All of the Netflix.
You start at the upper left square and you just let it, at 4 a.m, it just keeps pushing more content to you. But we've kind of seen all the major shows. Like we try to get that top 10 list. Of course, I jumped all over Squid Game recently. It was an experience in itself. We obviously saw the Game of Thrones and everything early in the pandemic, and they're almost everything in between. Switching up genres and switching up all these different binge watching things. It's not, my wife loves romantic comedies and these Hallmark movies that are exactly the same thing with different faces. That high performing woman from New York City that decides to go to the their small town that they grew up in, and there's that guy that drives the Ford F-150 that happens to be single and have no kids or other baggage, and they fall in love over Christmas or what. The fact is we watch a lot of that stuff too.
That's awesome. So if you pick one to recommend, we want the Jay McBain Netflix show recommendation. Which one would it be?
Well, right now, the most shocking one was Squid Game. That's kind of Squid Game. That's kind of the most recent. In terms of watching, I love kind of documentaries and stuff as well. So, I kind of love seeing the underlying, news and editorial around things that are happening in the world. So I flip between the two.
Awesome. All right. So we got a couple of recommendations there. Great stuff. Jay, for anybody who wants to learn more about you, reach out to you and Forrester, where can they find you? How can they get in touch with you?
Best thing is probably on social, either LinkedIn or Twitter or wherever it is, Facebook. I respond to all messages that come in from all different angles. So I treat everything like an email that comes in 30 different ways. And yeah, if you've got a question on any of these numbers or need to be pointed to any of the research behind the numbers, or just on general thoughts of what's going to happen at the end of this decade, and how do I come up with these forecasts or predict the future? And I don't know who's going to win the Super Bowl, but other than that, you're just open to kind of having those digital chats.
Awesome. And you got a blog, right? Very popular blog.
I do on Forrester, talking about all these things that have detail behind the arrow of what we talked today. I have a personal jaymcbain.com that I talk about cars and boats and family and music and movies and all that stuff too. So if you do want to get my top 10 movie list, it's there. If you want to get my, top 100 songs, they're all there. My personal life, my professional life, they're both kind of open books from a digital perspective. So, happy to see you anywhere.
Awesome. I'll make sure we put a link to both of those in the show notes page for episode 207 here. Jay, thank you so much for being on. It's always a pleasure. You're always a very insightful guy and gives everybody a lot to think about. So thank you so much for being on. We hope to have you back someday.
All right. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. And we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be on the other side, closing out the show with a little bit of fun things. And Rich will predict the future, which he gets right like way less than Jay. I'm just going to say that. So stick around for that. We'll be right back. And welcome back to part 3 of ChannelPro Weekly. We got Scott Beck. He's back with us here on the other side of that interview. Now, Rich, that was a great interview with Jay McBain. Any highlights that you wanted to point out?
It's almost hard to know where, what to focus on specifically. But I do think, and there was a lot of this and what he was talking about, and it's something that we touch on in ChannelPro regularly, but probably could and should talk about more, which is just the role that ChannelPros can and will kind of ultimately need to play in this emerging economy, channel economy, where your money isn't necessarily coming anymore from the vendor. It's more about what you're doing after the sale. Around that vendor's software, and we about once a year or so we'll do something on Salesforce, for example, and but I do feel like that model is becoming more and more prevalent and important out there, and I hope people are just starting to kind of think about that a little bit, and how they where they can play in that economy, because as Jay made clear, there are a lot of different roles.
Yeah. And there was a lot of things we touched on. So folks, if you didn't listen to that, go and listen to all of it, because there's a lot of change coming, and Jay is often right about this kind of stuff. So go and check that out. Dude. He is a very smart dude. I could not put that any better than that. So and unfortunately we didn't ask him how he takes his hot dogs. So I guess we'll have to find out. But however he has them, that's probably the actual correct way. So we'll have to ask about that next time. All right, Scott, you're back with us here on the other side. I'm glad you're still here to close out the show with us. We are going to play a little game with you. It's a lot of fun. We call it 5 questions. Basically, this is how this will work. So Rich and I will ask you 5 questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll go back and forth and take turns. And those questions can be about anything and everything. I guarantee they'll be off topic. I guarantee mine will be ridiculous. And no gotchas, nothing to embarrass you or anything, but just to learn a little bit more about you and have fun. Are you in?
So just to make sure I understand the rules, as a Canadian, can I still plead the 5th?
You cannot plead the 5th on ChannelPro.
Okay.
You have no rights here.
Okay, gotcha.
All right. Rich, question number 1 to you.
So as we know, but maybe most of the folks in the audience don't, before you were in IT, you were in radio. So in your best radio guy voice, give us the call letters of the first radio station that you worked for.
412 at CKCW 1220 AM stereo.
Nice.
I love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You do have a good radio voice. I like that. All right.
I paid the bills for 10 years.
That's good. That's good. Did you do that in high school too, or did something came up after high school?
Well, it's real funny story. I was in grade 12, senior year, and I remember my parents kept asking me, "What are you going to do with your life?" And I was like, "I don't know what to do." And my mother one day got frustrated with me about something, and I just remember the bang on the door. It's like, "Scott, you're going to be graduating high school. What are you going to do with your life? All you ever do is sit in this room, smoke cigarettes, and listen to music." It's like, where can I smoke cigarettes and listen to music and get paid? I know, radio. Thus the journey began. Thanks, Mom.
That's awesome. That is awesome. And it worked out for a while, at least. So that's.
I ended up in computers because they started replacing us on-air people with computers. So actually, it still goes back to Mom. This whole progression of my life and where I'm at, it kind of stems from that one event and how it all played out.
Okay, so that will lead me into question number 2. I'll ask that one. Name something that your mom told you to do, or a piece of advice that she gave you that you didn't take and you regret?
Well, I'm not going to talk about the first one that just jumped into my head, because we started the family very early in life. So that one we'll just take off the table. Matt, I honestly can't think of something specific of what she said we should do that I didn't follow her advice from. I will tell you, as I got older, both my mom and dad seemed to be a whole lot smarter. I don't know how they started getting smarter as I got older. But probably the don't smoke. Stop smoking. When they caught me when I had as far as they were concerned, they caught me with my first cigarettes when I was 15. I'd already been smoking for a few years, but yeah, you should quit smoking. That's not good for you. It was probably, looking back, I could have had several houses with the amount I used to smoke back in the day.
Good advice. Good advice. Mom's there looking out for you. I love it. Rich, question number 3 to you.
So we've been talking a lot about hot dogs, but if you are at a hockey game, what is your snack of choice? Could be the hot dog, could be a hamburger, could be something else entirely. What do you go for first?
Popcorn, or it's going to be nachos with that fake processed cheese on it. One or the other. One of those two.
Very cool. All right. Question number 4 to me. So I'm led to believe that Canadians like maple flavored things. Is that true?
In many situations, I can tell you I have had some maple stuff that I was like, ooh, no, wrong.
So that leads into my question. What is the strangest thing that Canadians eat with maple flavoring or maple syrup on it?
There was a maple bacon donut that someone decided to create. And it sounded, everything's better with bacon. No, it turned out that's not true. Maple flavored donut with bacon. No. Yeah. I got nightmares about that. Nope. No go. Hard no.
Hard no on the maple bacon donut. Although that's a big seller at Hertz Donuts makes those. And I guess that's a lot of people do like those, believe it or not. I don't know if I'd be a big fan of that either. I don't know if I like meat on my donuts. That's just kind of strange. All right, Rich, question number 5 to you.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, it has just in the past few weeks, it's gotten a little bit easier to cross the border between the US and Canada, I think. So, I mean, is there a destination or an activity south of the border that you're kind of looking forward to being able to do again now that it's not quite such a hardship to get out and get back in?
So it's just us 3 here. So no one's listening. So actually, I was down to Orlando in May of this year, and now that was a whole story upon itself because we were allowed to fly into the U.S., but I got my brain tickled, which we call the COVID test, like 5 times in a week and a half period. It was, and you had to go and stay in quarantine when you got back into Canada. It was not fun, but. After vaccination, things got a little better. So I've actually was down to Nashville in October, and I was to a security conference in Vegas this month. And next month, I'm slated to be back to a conference in Miami. So yes, this Canadian is back traveling at least.
Awesome stuff. Well, very, very cool. Thanks for playing along. It's always fun to learn a little bit of interesting things about people. So, Rich, why don't we switch gears here for a moment and think about what might have occurred in the past? And I bet you could tell us with fairly good accuracy what happened, but then why don't you try and look to the future, and we'll just kind of see how many of you get right.
I predict I'm going to be very accurate about the future this time. But I mean, in terms of the past, if you want to catch up on that, what you do is every Friday, you go to ChannelProNetwork.com. You look out for our In Case You Missed It post written by our own James Gaskin. This week, James is going to catch you up on the news out of Open Text World. That conference took place this week. Enable has a new head nerd on its team. I love that title. And just imagine having that in your business card. There is a new a cloud subscription management service from HP that's kind of interesting. You can read up on that. And the latest Guinness Book of World Records came out this week, and James will have some highlights for you, including details about the new record for consecutive cars jumped over on a pogo stick, because somebody had to own that. Looking ahead to next week, obviously here in the US, it's a holiday shortened week. Basically, the only thing my crystal ball shows me for next week is turkey, gravy, and football.
That's a good combination of stuff.
we Canadians kind of envy your Black Friday shopping. It's now become a thing in Canada.
Yeah, you know what though? Black Friday, it used to be a cool thing when it really was like you had one day of like actual Black Friday sales. But now they start Black Friday stuff at like the end of October, and it's just one big constant sale now. And you don't have the really awesome deals on Black Friday anymore, in my opinion. Prove me wrong, folks. But I think the Black Friday thing is now overdone. I mean, you have Black Friday sales in April now. You know what I mean? Just a bummer.
Well, then, Matt, look forward to Cyber Monday then.
Cyber Monday. Hopefully that's still a thing. We'll find out. So, Rich, you didn't mention Thanksgiving. It's important to note, folks, we will be taking next week off. There'll be no show next week because it's the Thanksgiving holiday. I'm going to be on vacation, and we normally record on Thursdays. That will be Thanksgiving, so we're just not gonna no show next week. But we'll be back the week after that. And Rich, we also got we just finished an event actually. On Tuesday. That was pretty good. You want to talk about that and what events coming up?
Yeah, well, I mean, I won't talk too much about the event we just did, because that was actually the last of our SMB Forum events for 2021, but it was great. It was targeted at our readers in the Southern California or Southwestern US area. We wound up doing it as an online event. It was originally going to be a hybrid event, but it was online only, and great participation, great panelists basically, and speakers, and so that was really exciting. But what is coming up, and what the folks in our audience still have an opportunity to get in on, is our annual Managed Services and Cloud Solutions Online Summit, which takes place December 8th. So online only event, plenty of time and plenty of room for folks to sign up at events.channelpronetwork.com. Gosh, we're going to be talking about what we are calling post-endpoint managed services. Which is basically, if you're building your business around managing PCs and servers, there is a limited time frame in which that's going to be a high profit strategic kind of direction for you. So you're going to still need to do that. But what else should you be doing on top of that, basically, to really run a thriving managed services practice? We got a session on that. We've got a session on high security for hybrid workforces. We've got a session around recruiting and retention. Boy, is that a headache for people right now. Finding people, getting them to accept a job offer, keeping them from accepting a job offer somewhere else. We've got a panel for you on that. There's something on customer experience, which is a really important topic right now, and what that means, and what it is that the masters of customer experience do that enable them to outcompete other channel pros out there. So lots of great stuff. Read up all about it. Register at events.channelpronetwork.com. That is our annual Managed Services and Cloud Solutions Online Summit, and it takes place December 8th.
Can't wait. Look, go register now. Events.channelpronetwork.com. It's going to be awesome. Scott Beck is his name. He's the president of BeckTek. Scott, always a pleasure having you on. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you had fun.
I always do, and I look forward to 2022 when we make it 3 years in a row.
Will be awesome. I agree. We'll definitely get you on the show docket for next year. Scott, for those who maybe want to learn more about your business, learn more about you, get in touch with you, where can they find you? How can they get a hold of you?
BeckTek, BeckTek.ca or scottdbeck.com. Both of those sites, one's for the company and one's for me.
And you got a couple books out there. What books should folks go and look for?
What they should be looking for is an early 2022 Cybersecurity Secrets Revealed. So it's the new one that's going to be launching. So that is set to come Q1 in 2022. So be watching for it, everybody. Please feel free to buy a copy.
Awesome, and they'll be able to find
the third one a bestseller too.
They'll be able to find that Amazon, other.
Yeah, it'll be on Amazon. Yeah.
All the regular places. Perfect. All right, well, keep an eye out for that. And Rich, when that book comes out, let's make sure we put a note in one of the shows and mention that it's out there for.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah, let us know when it's out.
Done deal.
All right, cool. And where else can you go to get great information about the channel, the news, white papers, resources, downloads? ChannelProNetwork.com is the website. Make it your homepage. Go there each and every day and stay on top of what's going on and get all this great information that's going to help you grow your business and ultimately help you make more money. And of course, subscribe to the ChannelPro Weekly podcast everywhere podcasts are. Get us on your phone, take us on the go, tell a friend or a coworker about us too, so that way others can join in the fun with you and learn as well. Of course, if you can watch us, you can listen to us there. That's probably the easiest way. If you do like to watch, we're on YouTube. Subscribe to us there, hit the like button, leave a comment, all that kind of stuff. Do that as well. And we would like to see you there. Of course, follow us on the socials. And with that, we will see everybody. We hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving, and we will see everybody the week following that. Until then, take care, and we'll see y'all then.